That is super good. My goodness. This to me is what the wine world's all about. Small producers giving their heart and soul. Thanks to one of the most visited places in Europe, the Amalfi Coast, a crazy city like Naples, the famous Mount Vesuvius that buried Pompeii, and indigenous grapes that can be found nowhere else on the planet, Campania may be Italy's hottest region. If you think of the country of Italy shaped like a boot, Campania is the shin. It borders the Mediterranean. It's right under the region of Lazio where Rome is found. Campania was home to some of the most famous wines in the ancient world, including Falernian, a wine that Pliny the Elder absolutely loved. The most famous wineries you'll see out there from Campania are Mastro Berardino and Fiori di San Gregorio, which make excellent wines. But here today, we have a selection of 12 different wines that I think you should check out. Campania is pretty far south in Italy, but it's known more as a white wine region with really interesting grape varieties like we'll taste here today. It's very mountainous. There's a ski resort there. Back in 2023, when I was there in May, there was still some snow up on the mountains. I've been to Campania 3 times in the last 365 days, and it's a region that I'm really falling in love with, especially because the food is outstanding. You have seafood, you have mountain cheeses, you have mozzarella di bufala, you have great wines. What else do you need? I know the wines aren't as famous or as well known as those you'll see from Tuscany or Piemonte, but that doesn't mean they're not worth your attention. There's a big quality revolution in Campania. A lot of the producers, especially the white wine producers, have modern technology making clean wines, but wines with character. I recently got back from Campania Stories, which is like the anteprima of Campania. What happens during these anteprimas in Italy, the wine media come in, there's usually hundreds of wines to taste every single morning, and then there are side trips. These are all wines I tasted there or producers that I visited, and these were the most memorable wines and I wanted to show them to you. Campania has about 46,000 hectares, so over 100,000 acres of vineyards, a multitude of terroirs with all the mountains and the coast. You have volcanic soils, you have sandy soils, and you have a lot of unique grapes, which makes for a wine geek's paradise. Get ready to find out about some unique, affordable wines. Let's get tasting. First up, we'll go with white wines. Again, Campania is home to a lot of unique varieties. This is the Michele Alois. Caiatì. This is made of the unique grape Pallagrello Bianco 2022. This comes in about 25 bucks. All of these wines are found in the US. Guys, I know people are complaining about availability. The most unique wines sometimes are going to be hard to track down. Finding great wine is like a treasure hunt. I list all the wines in the description box, links if they're available on wine.com. Just copy and paste them into Wine Searcher and try to find a shop near you. Alois is the benchmark producer when it comes to grapes, Pallagrello Bianco and Casavecchia. They make really excellent Casavecchia. This is the entry-level Pallagrello Bianco. They also make a reserve one, the Marrone, which is outstanding, but this is the wine that's a little more affordable. You're going to see more regularly. It was great for me to finally visit Alois because he sent me samples years and years ago. I was really impressed with the wines. He took me to this really unique hidden restaurant in some small village. We did verticals of a lot of wines, including the Caiatì. I haven't tasted this new vintage. I only tasted some old ones. Let's get tasting. The winery and this grape variety is only grown around the city of Caserta, which is close to Naples. I think Caserta is the second biggest city in Campania. I don't really know how to describe Pallagrello Bianco. I've had a handful of them. Just a unique grape, very mineral driven if you like that kind of thing. Same thing here. You look at a little bit more golden in color. For me, sometimes with these volcanic wines, it's almost like I smell a little bit of a campfire flavor. I get more of this yellow peach flavor, kind of a dried pineapple type note. And Mineral City with a little bit of campfire. I love the tanginess here. I love unique Italian grape varieties. This thing is like packed with fruit. Yeah, it has a real mineral finish, and this has got length for like a basic wine. I think in Italy it's like 12 to 15 euro wine. Real length, really impressive. This has got really the perfect balance of fruit and mineral. It's a complex white wine. It's something that I would love to have with a briny fish, something like mussels, shellfish. which in Campania, there's no shortage of. That's really good. Let's move on. Do something a little different. I'm showing you all these wines that I tasted on site. You know, wines are always different when you taste them on site or at the domain. They're always awesome. And then when you taste them, sometimes at home, you're like, oh, maybe they're not as good. I already pre-selected and knew these wines were going to be good, so I'm not going to score them. You'll probably just hear my tasting notes and see my expression. But this video is not sponsored, by the way. Just want to do something a little bit different. Let's move on here. This is the Cantine Olivella Katà. This is the grape Catalanesca del Monte Somma. 29 bucks. Catalanesca, it sounds like it could be a Spanish grape. There is a legend that the king of Aragon brought this over, I think in like the 8th century or something. But according to the Bible, when it comes to wine grapes, which is called wine grapes, they say DNA profiling shows that it isn't related to any known Spanish grapes. It's probably more related to Casa Vecchia, the grape variety that Alois is famous for making. High acid. I was super impressed with this wine. It's not a basic wine, but it's a wine that only sees stainless steel. This winery is on the northern slopes of Mount Vesuvius. You go to the north side of Mount Vesuvius, that's where the vineyard elevation is a little higher. You can see Naples. All the wines were fantastic. They do Piedra Rosso. They do Lacrima Christi, a wine that we'll taste a little bit later. Amazing place, real clean wines. When I was up on the vineyards, it was hard to not fall in love with the place. When you see Naples down below in the Mediterranean Sea, I'm going to see how this wine tastes when I'm at home here. This is floral, a little bit different than the Alois. I get lots of white flower flavors, dandelion, almost like a mineral water type flavor with some white pear. This is more mineral driven than the Alois. The Alois had some fruit, very minerally wine. Oh, what year is this? 2023. Super fresh. Mineral for days. In high acidity. Guys, if you like Riesling, like Caricante from Etna, you're really gonna like this. You feel the mineral hit on your side. People that want a little bit more fruit maybe want to stay away from this, but for acidity freaks like me, this is right up my alley, just with a touch of floralness. I really want this wine with oysters. Muscadet and oysters is fantastic. Champagne, Chablis is fantastic with oysters. Give me this relatively inexpensive wine. I know in Italy it's probably half the price. That is delicious. That's super good wine. Let's move on here. Next up is a wine Campania is famous for. Greco de Tufo. This is the Tenuta del Meriggio. Colle de Lauri, Greco de Tufo. This is 2018. This comes in at 22 bucks. Has a little bit of age on it. In the past, I haven't been super impressed with a lot of Greco de Tufos. When I tasted this during a dinner with different producers, I was like, wow, this might be the best Greco de Tufo I've ever had. Let's see how it shows right here. They make good Taurasi too, and we'll taste the Taurasi later. Again, when I tasted all these wines the first time, they're all wines I highly recommended, so this was like a pre-selection process. It comes down to the style that you want. Probably the most famous white wine grapes in Campania are Greco and Fiano. Also, you have Falanghina, you have Coda de Volpe, you have Bianco Lelela, a slew of others. Even though Campania is so far south, Greco and Fiano are picked into October. So they're late ripening grapes, nice golden color, it's got some age on it. This literally smells like beach sand. Literally. Beach sand with some dried white and yellow peaches. A little bit of apricot. Wow, this has power. Greco de Tufo, I usually think of those wines being a little lighter, a little simple. This has subtle power on the back end, but it still has really high acidity. That's why Grecos can age pretty well. Sometimes I think they can get a bit boring with age, not like this. This has stuffing. Even though the wine is called Greco de Tufo, the wines are not grown in volcanic soil. You would think that because you see the word Tufo. This is awesome. Hold on. This has a sandy texture on the corners of your mouth that you get in volcanic wines. That's I really like it. And you can get Greco de Tufos for next to nothing in the $20 range. I think this wine is very good, but it's not showing as well as when I had it on site, and that's just what happens sometimes. Okay, a pricier wine, but from one of the most visited areas in Europe. This is from the Amalfi Coast. Basically, Italy's answer to the Côte d'Azur in France. It's a spectacular place. This is the most famous producer from the Amalfi Coast, Marisa Cuomo. This is the Ravello 2022. This comes in at 39 bucks if you can find it in the US. Falangina and Bianco. Ravello is the name of a village. I went up there on the Amalfi Coast. It used to be an old Roman spa town. If you look up, I don't know the elevation, I think it's probably 1,200, 1,500 feet above the sea, and that drops dramatically into the Mediterranean. It's a UNESCO World Heritage Site. When I was up there, I was like, oh my God. It's probably the most spectacular man-made place that I've ever seen. When I talk about man-made, like there's villages there, not natural wonders. Marisa Cuomo is fantastic. I spent a whole afternoon with Andrea, the owner and winemaker, a super enthusiastic guy. This is their mid-price kind of village level. Their most expensive wine I have here is the Fior d'Uva. This is barrel fermented wine. These wines are rare. It's like a $150 wine, so I think I'll taste something that people can find more often. Marisa Cuomo is his wife. As a wedding gift to her, he gave the winery to her. That's why it's named after her. Cool thing, I found out her family is actually from Bosnia-Herzegovina and more of the Croatian side, and I have ties to Croatia, so I thought that was really cool. I have not tasted the Ravello Bianco, so let's give it a smell here. Maybe I'll take the glasses off to taste here. This smells like the sea, literally. It smells just like the sea. White flower, green apple, red apple. Oh man, it's very saline, very salty. A little bit of yellow peach flavor, has like the straw characteristic, really complex. This screams for whitefish. Sea bass, has salinity on the back end, have a little bit of a yellow flower flavor, have some bite to it, salty, complex. This is just something I really want to sip on during the summer. The Amalfi Coast is really spectacular. Positano is a famous town that's there. The only thing I don't like, I was there in June and it was already packed. Like the roads along the coast, it was like a nightmare to get around it, but I can see why people love the place and love these wines. This is a spectacular wine. These are wines that really appeal to fans of Riesling will really like this with the acidity. Sometimes at Sylvaner, it's kind of a more obscure grape from Germany. That's really good. A wine named after the village of Pompeii. Yes, the village of Pompeii that was knocked out during the eruption of Vesuvius. This is the Bosco dei Medici, Pompeii. Pompeiano Bianco. Pompeiano is the name of the IJT. It's $28. This is made 100% of the grape Capratone, grown on the slopes of Mount Vesuvius. They have luxury restaurant and hotel. I sat down with the owner. I really bonded over him because even though it looks all luxurious and big, the winery itself, they don't produce a lot of wine. And he was talking about the struggles of when you have a moving part, like a luxury restaurant and everything, keeping those moving parts when really he just wanted to make wine. The winery and restaurant overlook the village of Pompeii, which I was there the first time I went to Campania many years ago. It's an amazing place if you ever want to go there. Very well preserved, really spectacular. Capratone is one of the key varieties of Lacma Christi Bianco. It's a wine that's made on Vesuvius, but this is an IGT wine. Let's give this a smell. Part of this wine is actually fermented and macerated in M4, but it's not a full-fledged orange wine. Oh, that smells good. This smells like mineral water. White Peach City. It's a little bit floral, light, and very minerally, like a lot of these wines. The thing that's a little bit different about this wine, since there's a little bit of maceration, a little skin contact in M4, there's a lot of texture in this wine. It's tangy. It's not as acidic as some of these other wines. It has a little bit of bite. This is like a type of wine that I would love to have maybe with some pork neck or some cream chicken type dishes. And you can get this in the US. Man, that's good. Among all the whites, this is the first one that I feel goes with more substantial dishes. The other whites I want with more fish or shellfish. They also make a Pompeiano Rosso made of Piedra Rosso, which I think is absolutely delicious. Piedra Rosso is a grape we'll talk about later. That's a delicious wine. Especially, it's almost like a wine to get people into macerated wines. You don't have the maceration flavor, but you have a little bit of that texture. Let's move on to wine I'm super excited to show you guys. This is the Tenuta Scuotto. This is the OiNi. It's 2021. This is made of the grape Fiano. This comes in at 29 bucks. This is barrel fermented Fiano, one of my favorite grapes in all of Italy. The appellation dedicated to Fiano in Campania is Fiano di Avellino, although this is an IGT wine. Fiano is a grape that is incredibly complex, This is one of the better examples I've had. One of the best wines I had on the trip at Campania Stories. Let's see how it shows to you. Really good Fianos. Taste great when they're young, but with a little bit of bottle age. This is 2021, a couple years on it. It really starts to shine. When I was there, I did a vertical with the winery, and I like the freshest one, the 2021, the most. It's a winery when I pulled in, I was like, oh, is it going to be very good? You know, I don't really know that much about them, but I was really impressed with their wines. Even the Terroirs, they only make one red, but I could tell that white wines was the focus here. People that like that like the Chablis style are really going to get in a Fiano. This is a very impressive wine. This is a wine that really punches above its price point. You get cream, you get a little bit of white pear, Asian pear, just a touch of melon. Oh, it smells really good. White flower. This is complex. Got tons of layers. This really is kind of like got that white burgundy style. You have the wood, but not too much. Long. The fruit, you have like this little bit of stone fruit sweetness on the back end. It's a dry wine. But it's like, man, this is a wine I kind of would want to have on its own. It's maybe some chicken dishes, maybe some baked fish, steamed fish. This is my favorite white that I've tasted so far here to show you guys. That's really good. That's really good. Let's move on. Okay, a sparkling wine here, a red sparkling wine. Those of you that watch the channel know I love Lambrusco. Good Lambrusco is so food friendly. Gragnano, named after the village of Gragnano on the Sorrento Peninsula. The hard thing about Lambrusco is you got to learn the different grape varieties. You have to learn the sweetness levels. Gragnano is always going to be a dry sparkling wine. A dry, fizzy, red wine. They used to drink these wines in Naples historically in little shops. You'd have a glass of Gragnano with pizza. There's also a Gragnano pasta. This is the Otto Uve Gragnano. Does not have a vintage. This comes in at 20 bucks. This is made of the grapes Piedroso, Aglianico, Sciacinosa, Supesa, Castagnata, Cervena, Olivella, and Sora. 8 grapes, really crazy. This is made by the producer Salvatore Martuscello. He is one of the founding members of the Campi Flegrei appellation, which is just north of Naples. It's an active volcano. It's one of the largest super volcanoes in the world. There's tons of earthquakes there. He does great Falanghina and Piedroso, but this was my favorite wine that he made. Sommeliers are going to be so mad at me. I went right through the foil. I didn't feel like cutting the foil. I was lazy. Let's taste this. I am really excited to show you. Comes in at 20 bucks in the US. A lot less when you're in Italy. Look at this dark, dark, dark color. This smells awesome. It smells a little bit stemmy, blackberries. So funny, when red wines, I love dry red wines and dry still red wines. I love sour cherry flavors, but when it comes to sparkling red wines like Lambrusco, I want dark fruit. Blackberries, black raspberry, stems, a little bit of sea salt. Oh. This is only slightly fizzy. Got real length. Here's the thing about... It's more of a drier style. There's a touch of residual sugar there, but not a ton. There's a little bit of tannin. So, you know, a little bit of astringency. Going to be a great pizza wine. I even had a sip of this. There are wines that are critically meant to be higher scoring wines. I don't think this wine would be like the highest score in the world, but is this wine pure delicious? And do you want to just polish the whole bottle? I know that I do. I think this is absolutely outstanding. Gragnano, you buy a bottle of Gragnano, you know it's always going to be a same style. This with pizza, any tomato-based dishes is just going to crush. That is good. I have another wine from the Amalfi Coast. I'm trying to show different regions throughout Campania, but this was such an excellent wine. This is the Ettore San Marco Costa Amalfi Terre Saracine 2023. This comes in at 30 bucks. The Amalfi Coast, the vineyards are incredibly steep. They're really difficult to work. The wines can't be cheap. Also, tourism drives up the cost of these wines. This was the best rosé I've had in all my trips to Campania. When I tasted it there, let's see how it shows. Switched glasses, by the way. For the whites, I was using a Zalto Universal. I switched over to the Spiegelau Definition Bordeaux glass because I'll use that for the reds. And it was the last glass was a little dirty with the red sparkling, so I thought, hey, let's just use a red wine glass. I also want the high acidity to wash my palate clean. This is made of the grapes Piedra Rosso and Aglianico. Aglianico is probably the most famous red wine coming out of Campania, responsible for the wines of Taurasi, big age-worthy wines, the Barolo of the South. Piedra Rosso used to be a workhorse variety, but it's really coming into its own. It can be made into a variety of styles. When it's made well, it can be pretty light. Like, I have an upcoming video called Can Anything Resemble Pinot Noir? And I put a Piedra Rosso in that blind tasting because I think sometimes the wines can be excellent. Let's give this a smell here. This is everything I want in a rosé. Don't sleep on rosés, guys. Rosés can be super serious and they're so food friendly, fun to drink during the summer. This has just got strawberry minerals all over the place. My goodness. Oh, man. Strawberry, minerals, watermelon, a little bit of salinity, has a little bit of bite. It's a lighter rosé, so a lot of people are gonna like it, but there's a substance there, there's complexity. It's not just tap water. That's good. This producer also owns a restaurant up in Ravello, a hotel and a restaurant. I set up there at night overlooking all the lights of the Amalfi Coast, ate some wonderful food there. I like rosés because you can have it with shellfish that's got so much salinity. You can have it with fish, you can have it with chicken, and heck, why not? The acidity, why not have it with steak too? Got like this white pepper finish. Light enough for most people to like, but still super complex. That's delicious. Let's move on here. A wine style I think that should be a lot better than it is, but this is one of the better ones I've tasted. We're moving to the slopes of Mount Vesuvius, especially on the south side. There's a wine being made there called Lacrima Christi. Lacrima Christi stands for the tears of Christ. It can be a red wine or a white wine. This is the Lacrima Christi from Sorrentino. Vigna Lapillo, Lacrima Christi Superiore 2018. This is 80% Piedra Rosso, 20% Aglianico. I remember the first time I went to Campania, I was sitting on the coast in Sorrento. This was way back in 2017 or 18. I ordered a bottle of simple Lacrima Christi, looking out at the island of Ischia and Capri and thinking, man, life doesn't get any better. Lacrima Christis are not expensive. They're wines that can be a little rustic and simple. I feel like the producers need to really up their game in terms of Lacrima Christi. It has everything like Etna has. You have the vineyards that are grown on an active volcano. You have Naples nearby, which is a huge city. I feel like Lacrima Christi could be a great wine. This one was, when I tasted it, this was one of the better ones. Let's give it a taste here. Piedra Rosso makes lighter red wines, where Aglianico makes more tannic, muscular big wines. This comes in at 13.5 alcohol. This winery, Sorrentino, also has a restaurant. I didn't eat there, but it's beautiful, facing the coast, and you can see the Sorrento Peninsula off in the distance. Single vineyard, Lacrima Christi. Let's get it. What I loved about this wine, so earlier the winery we tasted, the Cantine Olivella, they also make a Lacrima Christi, but it wasn't their best wine. It was more pretty modern, pretty straightforward. This is traditional tasting. I love it, but not dirty. This has got sour cherry, red cherry. It's got a little bit of leatherness, a little bit of pepper, earth, minerals, smoke. This also comes in at 25 bucks in the US, so super affordable. I think I've seen it on some websites even at $19.99. That's killer for the nose so far. If you like these traditional Italian wines with just a touch of leatherness, man, but it doesn't take over the fruit. There's a little bit of rawhide leather component, just a touch of tannin from the Aglianico, but the fruit still covers it. This, in texture and style, some aroma, it is kind of Village Burgundy-esque. I think that's a heck of a wine for 25 bucks. They also make a basic Lacrima Christi Rosso and Bianco, but I'd step up for the single vineyard because it's not that much more and the wines are so good. That's really good. I'm pro Lacrima Christi. Lacrima Christi producers, step up your game. A lot of potential there. Let's move on. Wine and a winery that really touched me. So in the ancient world, one of the greatest wines of the time was Falernian, which back in the day was an aged wine. It could be dry, it could be sweet, it was high in alcohol, it probably resembled modern day Madeira. The Romans even had a cruise system, which was not common for Romans because they were just making a bunch of wine in quantity to feed to the troops to cut water. It was sustenance back then, but Falernian was a fine wine, so they developed this cruise system. It doesn't exist anymore, but this appellation exists, and this wine is made on the sites where Falernian was made before. This is the Masseria Felicia. This is the Falerno del Masico Rosso 2014. This comes in around 28 bucks. I've seen some older vintages on the internet. This is not the current release. I remember visiting this producer. It was just a simple farmhouse. I had a migraine at the time. I didn't feel great, but when I was there, I wanted to take advantage, so I went to the tasting anyway. He makes a special edition Etica Bronze, which is a reserve wine, which is not that much more, but I preferred this basic wine. This is made of Piedroso and Aglianico volcanic soils. 2014. His wife, which was the main winemaker and the main owner, died in the last couple years. I know that they became famous because back in the day when Robert Parker discovered these wines, he gave them a pretty high score. Let's taste this. The cool thing, as I've shown you so far, we'll get to a... I get the bug? I got the bug. It's gnat season, so there's gnats going around, so I got the bug. The cool thing is, look, Campania, I know the wines aren't as heralded, they're maybe not as widely available, but if you seek them out, you're getting a lot of value for money. I'm not showing you super expensive wines. Marisa Cuomo was the most expensive, but it is Amalfi Coast. Does drive up the prices. Let's give this a smell here. I'm gonna wait to talk about this wine until I taste it, so. Oh man. So, this has tons of smoke, earth. It's got black cherry, this like dried red plum flavor. Reminds me of when I used to live in Southeast Asia. You go to some of the Chinese medicine shops and you smell these dried sour plums. That's what you get here. It smells fiery, man. Fiery. Oh, huge spike of flavor on the mid palate. Tannins are soft and refined. This to me is what the wine world's all about. Small producers giving their heart and soul. I know the current release of this wine when you're in Italy is probably less than 15 euros. You don't have to spend a lot to have fine wine. Traditional, it's not generic, it's not a cookie cutter wine. Tons of character, has a story, has history, and you're not spending it. Age-worthy, 2014, 10 years. This is not by the end of the means at the end of its life. The simple classic label that's not very attractive. This is just outstanding wine for the price. And you can find older vintages on Wine Searcher. That is super good. My goodness. I like these last two wines were more traditional flavors, just to have tons of character. Italy is not just Tuscany and Piedmont, guys. There's a world of wine out there. Let's move on. Campania is known as a white region, but its most famous wine is red, called Taurasi. Taurasi is the Barolo of the south, or a lot of people say Barolo is the Taurasi of the north, made of the grape Aglianico, one of the last harvests in southern Italy. Taurasi, and then the neighboring region, Aglianico del Voltore in Basilicata, the region south of Campania. Sometimes these grapes are picked into November. Super late ripening, really can resemble Barolo when it's aged. I've actually been tricked before by Taurasi in blind tastings. You have that high acidity, you have a lot of that rose petal, that tar type flavor. And yes, it is the south, but Taurasi is a region that's inland a little bit, higher elevation, so it's a little bit cooler. But before we get to Taurasi, we're getting to a new appellation that was created to be like a baby Taurasi, or like Rosso di Montalcino compared to Brunello di Montalcino. The appellation is Irpinia Campi Tarasini. This is a producer, Tenuta Cavalier Pepe, and I have two of their Irpinia Campi Tarasini wines. First, the Santo Stefano. This is one of my favorite wines from them. Sour cherry all day. Comes in at 20 bucks in the US. When you're in Italy, you can get it for a lot less than that. It's a wine that you can find every day, but I'm not gonna taste it. I think I'm gonna taste, they started making a more expensive one, only an amphora. This is the Appio Irpinia Campi Tarasina from Tenuta Cavalier Pepe. Expensive though. Comes in at 90 bucks. 2,000 bottles, 2018. I just want to taste it because I know Santo Stefano already. Cavalier Pepe does excellent white and red wines. Actually, the best Falangina still to this day I've ever had is their Santa Vara, which is a barrel fermented Falangina. The wines are super affordable because they have quantity. They make a good amount of wine. This is a brand new wine from them. Irpina Campi Torresini is also made of Aglianico, usually from younger vines or vines that are outside the Torressi appellation. I find that I like Aglianico. Yes, I love some of the great Torressis, except some Torressis can be marred with too much oak, too much rustic winemaking. I like Aglianico when it's made young and fresh. It's a high acid, high tannin grape. Let's give this a smell here. Sour cherry, cranberry, a little bit of smoke. It's so weird because this doesn't see wood at all. Mineral flavors. It's got a lot of black pepper, not white pepper. A lot of black pepper coming at me. Oh, delicious. Got like the straw component to it. This to me is like quintessential Italian wine. Whenever you can go more red fruit and sour cherry, I'm all in. You sold me. Tons of texture here. There is tannin. Aglianico can have a ton of tannin, but this one, it's okay. It's not too big, but you definitely feel it. Got fine green. I mean, this is fine wine. The only thing is, it's $90 because it's small production, made in amphora. The Santo Stefano is much cheaper. When I tasted them side by side, this is a better wine than Santo Stefano, but again, $90. You know, some people don't want to spend that. When you have these small production wines made in amphora, there's only 2,000 bottles. Producers can sell them because there's small quantity. I recommend most people, if they want to try this appellation, try out the Santo Stefano, but this is one heck of a wine. They also make a very nice approachable Torressi. They make 2 of them actually, and that is super good. Hold on, let me have some more of that. Delicious, without the aggressive tannins that Aglianico is known for. Let's go to the big boy, Torressi. I did not know about this producer until Campania stories. I Capitani. This is the Torressi Bosco Fano. This is 2019. This comes in at $45. Only made in great vintages. 2019 was a fantastic vintage in Italy. This producer, I had never heard of them before. I visited them on one of my last days there in Campania. Really nice guy. The son is an engineer. The whites I didn't like so much, but the reds were awesome. They also make a Irpina Campi Torresini and a fresh Aglianico that's just delicious. I both highly recommend, but I wanted to show you the Torressi because when I tasted it there, it really resembled Barolo. They have a consultant winemaker from Piedmont that's got experience with Barolo, so that's why I think why. $45. I know it's expensive, but with the prices of Barolos going up, you know, maybe you look to Torressi. With my great sadness, I was supposed to be on a Torressi trip and a big master class in August, but unfortunately I judged Mundus during that time, and I'm loyal to Mundus so I couldn't go. Again, Torressi's made of 100% Aglianico. They need to be aged quite a bit before they sell. They really don't come into their own unless they have bottle age. I remember for years when I started my wine career, I was tasting, even judging competitions where I was tasting a lot of Torressi, a lot of Aglianico, and I never really got the grape variety until I went back to Singapore and I was doing blind tasting with a bunch of sommeliers. We all brought a bottle and somebody brought an aged Torressi, and a lot of us thought it was either Barolo from a warm year or Sino Mavro from Greece, wine that can also resemble Barolo. We pulled it out and it was Torressi, and I thought, oh my gosh, now I finally get it. Just a couple weeks after that, I had a bottle of aged Fiori di San Gregorio. Their Pian di Montevertine, I think, their top Torressi Reserva, was also very Barolo-esque, and I was like, oh, I get it. This is awesome. Violets, sour cherry, cranberry, traditional. This is awesome wine. It's so funny because I've not been a red wine guy lately. It's warmer out. I've been enjoying whites a lot more, but this has character. Man. Got a little bit of smoke, some tar. This really does resemble like a warmer Barolo. It really does. This is a baby, but it's already drinking super, super well. Sometimes you get this with Torressi. Sometimes the tannins are a little bit more approachable than Barolo young. Barolo's Barbaresco is made of the grape Nebbiolo from Piedmont. Sometimes those tannins are too harsh. They're too aggressive. This is not. Leather, red fruits, violets instead of rose petal, which I often get in Barolos. It's a little different. Resembles like a bolder, richer Barolo, 14.5 alcohol. Outstanding wine, a wine that really should age super well. So tell me, have you ever been to Campania before? Have you tasted any wines from Campania? Maybe any of these wines or any of these grapes? I'd love to hear. Drop it in the comments below.